Good morning.
Morning.
Before we get started with the formal part of the program, I'd just like to introduce, first of all, our former Dean, Director Jerry Schubel, and his wife, Margaret. Stand up. Jerry told me he needed a break from the heat and the fires of California, so he's getting refreshed here today. I want to also say that it's a sad note that one of our former friends and colleagues, Bob DeZafra, passed away 2 nights ago. And Bob was such an integral part of the school here. I believe he was the first director of ITPA, and I believe Jerry was instrumental in getting ITPA out of physics and astronomy and over here to marine sciences at the time. But Bob was, he never really retired. He was here all the time. I know he would have been here today. But beyond his academic career, he really was a great part of the community, and he devoted so much of his life, particularly in the latter years, to greening 25A, improving the railroad station, and other civic activities. And so, in a way, Bob represents, I think, one of the things that we're trying to do today, and that is to improve the outreach of science to the public and to the community. And he certainly represented that. So I'd sort of like to dedicate this day to Bob's memory. He was a great friend. So with that, I would like to start now on a brighter note and say that I want to thank Mark Lang and Mark Wiggins in particular for setting this up today, and also to Matt Colson from the Alumni Association, who worked so tirelessly to put all this together. So this is really an exciting day. It's hard to believe it's been 50 years since the School of Marine and Atmospheric Sciences got started, formerly known as Marine Sciences Research Center, which we still proudly say stands for making scientific research count. And Jerry's going to talk about that later this afternoon for the next 50 years. But this morning we're going to concentrate a little bit on our history and some other forms of communicating. We used to have a writer's workshop here in the mid-1990s, and they were really exciting. We had Peter Matheson, Dava Sobel attend. We had the author of The Beautiful Swimmer, I forget, was Warner. And it was really a great thing. This was long before Stony Brook University was involved with the Writers' Workshop at Southampton. So in a way, we were very creative in trying to do this thing. But in recent years, it's become apparent that just writing is passé in many ways, that there are other forms of communication and that we should be taking advantage of them in order to try to get our science to a broader audience, perhaps in a more exciting way, perhaps in a more compelling way, and in a more convincing way. And that was the emphasis that we tried to make when we began to talk about what can we do to celebrate our 50th anniversary. And so today we're going to explore some of those new techniques. The art of blogging, how to get your message across that way, maybe through techniques that we haven't thought of before, poetry, and we're also going to hear a little bit about fake news from Dean Schneider. So that's one of the things I think we want to accomplish today. The other one of the things that also made me pleased that we're going to do this is I turned on 60 Minutes the other night, and I listened to them talk about the Trump campaign's success in using Facebook and other technologies to get the Trump message across. And they really did their marketing research. They explored the use of words. What is a good message that's going to attract people to his campaign? They explored color, how people reacted to different colors. They even explored whether to use the words on the little button, should you donate or should you give? We need to understand those kinds of things as we explore getting our messages across as well. And I don't think we've done that perhaps as well as we could. So we're going to talk about that today. I don't want to take any more time. I want to introduce our first speaker, Dr. Malcolm Bowman. Where is Malcolm? Okay. And he's going to talk about a little of the history of SoMAS. So Malcolm, thank you very much.
Thank you all for coming, one and all. I mean, I see so many wonderful faces, young and old and in between. And I want to pay special tribute to this gentleman here, Lou Wunderlich. I haven't seen Lou for over 40 years. 42 years. And Lou was one of my very first master's students. And Larry Swanson, where is Larry gone? Larry was here for 10 years as when he's working for NOAA as the director of the biggest program called MESA, federal program, 10-year program to look at the serious problems in the coastal ocean off New York State. And Larry gave me an assignment to come up with a New York Bight, the ocean, what you see there on this picture here, and out to the ocean, an atlas. And so Lou worked with me, and I haven't seen Lou since. My wife Waveney and I went to Lou's wedding. That was the first Jewish wedding we'd ever been to. Amazing. So thank you for coming especially. But
Great to be here.
all of you, I want to keep faith with the program because people have busy schedules. So there's a slideshow, but there's too many slides, so I'm going to whiz through what you don't see. And it's been censored. I was told, Malcolm, keep it straight. And so some of the more racier slides have been taken out. So, all right. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So this is Mark Lang, my co-conspirator. He's the fellow color counts, as Swanson said. Red and blue. Oh, there he is. Thank you. Thank you, Mark. And Larry, should you give or should you donate? Where's Swanson gone? All right. Should you give or should you donate?
Pardon?
Too late. The concept of oceanography as a discipline goes way back to the mid-60s, 1960s, and Governor Nelson Rockefeller held a governor's conference in New York City saying we have to, as a state, and with the state university that he was rapidly developing, we have to get into marine sciences. And so, but here are some significant, through the 60s and the 70s. 62, Rachel Carson publishes Silent Spring. 67, the Environmental Defense Fund was formed right here in Stony Brook. And Charles Worcester, one of our emeritus professors, was one of the co-founders. 5 men, 4 scientists and 1 lawyer. Started the Environmental Defense Fund over the issue of DDT. EDF now has 2 million members, over 500 employees, and working in all countries of the world, an annual budget of 180 million. Amazing story. In 69, the National Environmental Policy Act, NOAA and USPA formed by executive order of President Nixon. There's a whole story behind that. The first order of business of the first administrator, William Ruckelshaus, was to hold hearings on banning the use of DDT, which he did. Ruckelshaus was here in this building for Charles Worcester's retirement. 72, Marine Protection and Sanctuaries Act, Water Pollution Control Act, Coastal Zone Management Act, Marine Mammal Protection Act. 73, Congress passes the Endangered Species Act. Amazing period relating to the environment. 73, I've said that. 75, the Vietnam War ends. And so the 70s were a time of great upheaval, change. 76, Magnuson-Stevens Fisheries Conservation and Management Act. Golly. And it goes on. We're going to run out of time, but 87, Marine Plastic Pollution Research and Control Act. 87, Montreal Protocol, controlling the hydrofluorocarbons that were destroying the ozone hole, and Bob Zafra, that Larry is paying tribute to, was a part of that. 88, Ocean Dumping Ban Act. 89, the Soviet Union crumbles. 97, the Kyoto Protocol negotiated in Japan is just coming to an end. Very complicated. 2007, the UN Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change announces that very likely, 90% that means, that humans are having an impact on the climate. And 2017, the Paris Climate Accord that we all know about, and now our beloved president is considering pulling us out. It's hard to separate these days politics from science and the environmental affairs, but we carry on. Oh gosh. How can you condense history into 10 minutes? 65, Lee Koppelman, who sends apologies, he couldn't be here today. He still lives in Setauket. He claims to be the grandfather of this institution when he was working for the Long Island Regional Marine Sources Council. 67, the MSRC was formed. Peter K. Weil was appointed the first professor, jointly with Earth and Space Sciences. Peter died a year ago, and at the age of 92. And his wife Muriel still lives in the Setauket. She's an amazing person, a good friend of mine. She would have been here today, except her granddaughter's getting married this afternoon or tomorrow. And then our first degree program. When I first came here, there was no academic programs. We were called an organized research unit of the State University of New York. But it became very clear very quickly that you have to have programs and students and education mission to survive. And so it started at the master's level. When was that? 69. Same year, Flax Pond was jointly purchased by the state DEC and the university. The DEC holds the title, but we pay for half the cost, and we have an open ground lease, if you like, to do research in the pond. 1970, we get into fisheries. Laurie McHugh, appointed as professor of fisheries science, a very distinguished career in the federal government. Don Squires was the first director in 71. Don, as we speak, is fighting for his life in a hospital in Tasmania after having serious surgery. And I'm in touch with his wife, Marion. And then I came along in 71. Charlie was promoted. And then we moved from main campus to J Building, which is the dental school now, behind us. And then Bob Wilson, where's Bob? Bob was appointed as MSRC's first postdoc fellow. When was that? 72? 73. And then 74, Ivor Duedale was appointed as assistant professor of chemical oceanography. And what happened was, very quickly, that I'd been here 6 months, and Don Squires and his executive assistant left and took their salary lines and went up to Albany to run the new fledgling New York Sea Grant program. So we were kind of leaderless for a while, and none of the senior faculty really wanted to take on that job. Hi, Mark. And so here was Ivor and I, sort of beginning assistant professors, struggling, to get established, untenured. We're kind of doing the day-by-day running of the center, and then things were looking pretty grim, actually, and morale was dropping, and Ivor and I thought that maybe the whole center would be shut down. And so a search committee was set up, chaired by Dr. McHugh, Laurie McHugh, but nothing seemed to be happening. And now I have a confession to make. that Ivor and I, so the search committee was formed, they got a dossier of applicants, but nothing was happening. So Ivor and I snuck into the front office and looked through the files, and one file stood out way above the others, and it was a young man called Jerry Schubel from Chesapeake Bay Institute. And I said, Ivor, this is amazing. Ivor, you phoned him up. And so Ivor phoned Jerry, and Jerry said, I'm visiting Brookhaven Lab next week. And so maybe I could drop by after my visit to Brookhaven, and he did. So we had a little completely unauthorized and formal interview. Jerry probably denied this. And his interest suddenly sort of grew. And then Jerry went home, and I said, Ivor, what do we do now? We're in big trouble, Ivor. So we went to see Laurie McHugh, and we confessed, and he was mad as hell. And he said, what? I won't tell you what he said. It was colorful, but he said, oh. So we were shaking our boots because, we thought that was the end of it. So anyway, that spurred it, and the rest is history. The committee got going again, and Jerry was hired, and everything changed. Mary Scrant, and then one of the first things Jerry did was we got the ONRUS PhD program in 78, right? We pushed that through. Jerry pushed that through. Mary Scranton. Mary said, where's Mary?
79, not 85.
I've never heard a woman claim she's older than stated. Mary?
That was the year I was promoted to associate, Malcolm.
Oh, we'll change that. Mark? Anyway, you can read this for yourself, right? 2006 acquired Southampton College, which 2007 we become the school. 2008 we partnered with the Blue Ocean Institute, now the Safina Center. Carl, wave your arms around. There's Carl. The Institute of Ocean Conservation Science. And then, so now this is a big thing. In 2015, the sustainability studies. That was when the Southampton College campus was sort of closed down, we had a mass migration of that program. I looked at these 700 students as academic refugees, but we took them in, and we blessed them, and we embraced them, and we got them through, and now they're part of us. All right, and here we are today. All right. In the early days, we had responsibilities not only locally, the urban sea, as Long Island Sound was called, and is still called, but also waters to the north, Isles of Shoals and Jamaica Lab, to the tropics and the clean water. These buildings named, these were the early, one of the things that Jerry did, once we got these 4 buildings, we moved from down the road there. Endeavor, Challenger, Discovery, Dana. And here's a story about Jerry in the Newsday, and Howie Schneider sitting in the front row here. Dean Howie Schneider was the managing editor at the time, and wrote some very good things about us and some very bad things we heard.
Jerry hasn't forgotten that.
You'll hear from him later on, but he's a dean, so he's got to give the party line, right? No, just joking. Former research vessels, the ONRUS top left that Jerry brought us, built for us in Rhode Island, I believe, Jerry. ONRUS was the name of the first European ship to sail through Long Island Sound, Adrian Block in 16-something. Is that right? And anyway, we keep going. Front center there is our flagship now, the RV Seawolf, converted fishing trawler from New England. You ever see that movie, The Perfect Storm? That's the sister ship. Various Rogues Gallery. Let's go on. This is emeritus faculty. I'm not sure it's completely up to date, but you'll recognize some of the faces there. Retired staff. Some of them are here today. In memoriam, this, people who died, some ripe old age, some tragically in their youth. In addition to, there's Bob DeZafra, top row, third from the left. Straight beneath him, Akira Kubo, and to his right, Bill Peterson, fisheries biologist, died a couple of months ago. Peter Wildbottom, right, died, as I said, a year ago. We pay honor to our fallen heroes. And that's it. So that in a nutshell is where we've come and where we're going. And actually, if you looked at the list of deans, it said in the bottom there, applications welcome. So we're in the process of looking for a new dean. So if you're interested, let us know. And but Jerry was our super dean. You were here, Jerry, for 20 years, and you rescued this fledgling, fragile, unstable, embryonic Marine Sciences Research Center. And Jerry's mantra was always, we're going to be the best coastal marine institute in the world, right?
Right.
You can't deny it, right? And that was a wonderful rallying call, and everybody bought into that. And Jerry wisely said, well, we can't be a New Woods Hole, we can't be a new Scripps, but we're going to concentrate on the coastal zone. And that was our mission, and that was part of the formation. And looking at that map, as Jerry loved to say, we had a wide range of environments from one of the world's most densely populated urban centers, New York City. As you go east, becoming more and more suburban and then rural. And so we have, not only on the terrestrial side of things, but on the marine side of things, a whole range of problems and societal affected programs. And so that's my story. Thank you.
I just wanted to put a couple things in perspective. My first visit to Stony Brook was in 1969, and I stayed at the Three Village Inn. The cost of staying there overnight was $10.
What? Breakfast included?
No breakfast. But I also have a copy over in the office, and I hope you all make a tour through the dean's office and see some of the art and the old navigation tools and so forth. I have a copy of Peter Weil's textbook.
Oh.
And I was at Oregon State, and Peter taught us from the drafts of that textbook.
Oh.
But if you look at the frontispiece, published in 1970, it says that he was at SUNY at Stony Brook in the Marine Sciences Research Center. And it's probably the first time that we ever had a book published with the marine science name associated with it. So please drop in and see some of the display that's in the dean's office.
In the 60 seconds I have left, I want to tell you a little story, Larry, about how I happened to be here. I was an engineering student up in Western Canada, and as I got near the end of my degree, I was looking to get back. I was in the prairies, 1,500 miles from the ocean, so I missed the ocean. I grew up around the ocean. So I used to go over to the library and I looked through journals. And this Prairie University in Saskatchewan subscribed to a journal called Deep Sea Research. Now, why would a Prairie University, 1,500 miles from the ocean, subscribe to Deep Sea Research? None of those students had ever seen the ocean. They were all prairie kids. But I used to go there and I used to go look through it. I just randomly would read articles, and I'd write to the authors of papers that looked interesting. And I'd just write to them and say, look, I'm just nearing the completion of my degree. Is there any chance of a job in your lab or a postdoc or something? And I must have done 40 or 50 of these. But one day, just randomly, I opened Deep Sea Research. It's like sticking the pin in the Bible for the verse for the day. And there was this funny little article by a man called Peter Weil, I thought, at, as you said, the Marine Sciences Research Center, State University of New York, Stony Brook. So I wrote to Peter and promptly forgot about it. And next thing I got a phone call saying from Don Squires, we want to bring you down for an interview. The rest is history. So if it wasn't for that random encounter by Peter Weil in that Prairie University, I wouldn't have been here, but the rest of you would. So thank you.